Okay, we're going to start off by going very simply through everything that we've done with trigonometry to put it in one nice and easy spot for you. So when I have a problem that is a bit like this one, so this is finding side lengths. You can see the page of the textbook, and there we go. So what I need to do is I look and I go, righto, here's my angle. I need to find out what x is. So as always, first thing I'm going to do is I look at my little flow chart here to say, how do I know which ratio I'm using? So first question I ask is, am I using the hypotenuse? And so when I look here, my answer is clearly no, I'm not using my hypotenuse. So according to my flow chart, if I'm not using my hypotenuse, then I have to be using tan. So straight away, I can start off by writing my tan rule, which is tan of the angle equals opposite over adjacent. Now I need to fill in my blanks. So the angle is 40, the opposite side is x, the adjacent side is 21. Sorry about the x there. So now my next step is that I need to isolate my variable. I want to get this x on its own. At the moment I've got divide by 21 there, so to do the opposite of that, times by 21. Golden rule of mathematics says that whatever I do to one side, I do to the other side. So I now have a situation where x equals tan 40 times 21, and I plug that into my calculator by just pressing tan 40 times 21, and my answer is 17.62 becomes x. Same thing, I go here, alright, so I know that my first question is going to be, am I using my hypotenuse? I need to find out what ratio I'm using. The answer this time is yes. So I go here, yes. Now my next question, what other side do I use? So let's go back and have a bit of a look. Well, here's the angle, and so my hypotenuse is there, and this one is next to it, or adjacent. So if I'm using the adjacent, then I'm going to be using my cos ratio. So I start as always, cos, now SOHCAHTOA equals adjacent over hypotenuse. My next step is to put in the values that I know. So cos of 19 is x over 5.8. Now, as I did just there, I've got x divided by 5.8, so I need to get x on its own by multiplying by 5.8. I do that to both sides, so I end up with cos of 19 times 5.8 equals x, and that goes straight into my calculator like so. Cos 19 times 5.8, and my answer to that one is 5.48. So x equals 5.48. So that's that nice easy one. We then had a look and we said, well, what if x is on the other side? So where we look at, or on the other side down the bottom. So again, the first step is going to be exactly the same. So I need to know, righto, what ratio am I using? So my first question always, am I using the hypotenuse? The answer is yes. So then I go have a look, righto, what other side do I use? Well, this time I'm using the opposite side, because there's my angle. So I look opposite that angle is that side with a 9 on it, and opposite uses the sine rule. So I start, sine of the angle equals some old hags, or SOH, is opposite over hypotenuse. So again, I fill in my blanks. Sine of 42 equals my opposite is 9 and my hypotenuse is x. Now this is where it gets a little tricky, possibly simple. I can't just go times x. There's the phone. How embarrassing. So I can't times it by x, but what I can do, I can't just times it by 9, apologies. I can times it by x to get the x over that side, then divide that side by sine 42. Effectively, the shortcut world, I'll use a different colour if I can, and I swap these two around. So I end up with x equals 9 over sine of 42. So if you get to the point where you have that and your unknown is down the bottom, right, you can swap them over. It's a process, that's the shortcut. If you want to know the long way, come and talk to me. But then it's as simple as exactly the same thing, into my calculator, 9 divided by sine 42, enter. And I end up with 13.45. So that one becomes 13.45. So those are the two processes that we use when we're when we're looking for the side. So it's either going to be, the unknown's going to be on the top or down the bottom. Last thing we need to have a look at is, well, what if I know two sides and I don't know the angle? So for instance, I'll fill in my blanks here. That one should be there, and I said that was C, so that one should be there. So I've got two unknown angles, so we call those ones theta. So again, I start with the same process. Well, here's my angle. What ratio am I going to use? So am I using the hypotenuse? Yes, I am. What other side am I using? I'm using the adjacent side. So I'm using my adjacent, I'm using the hypotenuse, so I know that I'm going to be using the cos ratio. I can have a look at my flowchart if I need to, but I'm starting to get the hang of it now. So can't always hide, or ka for katoa. Now I do the same thing by putting in what I know. So I know that that's that. Then, well, what do I do? Because, I mean, I can go if I want. I can say, well, 19 divided by 26, that's 0.7307692308. I'm going to leave it as a fraction to keep my accuracy going. I now need to, I can say that, well, cos of the angle is that, but I don't care what cos of the angle is, I care what the angle is. So what I need to do with my calculator is I actually hit my shift button. So I'm going to hit shift and then cos. And it's this thing here, so it's cos -1 is what it looks like. There's the bell, go to morning tea. So I end up pressing that one, and then I can press my 19 divided by 26. I'm going to put it in brackets just to make sure. And I end up with, so if I hit, so I end up, so the cos -1 of the angle, don't really need to write that in there, right? But what I do by pressing that cos -1 that you see there, and it just gives me the answer very simply, 43.05. I repeat that process over here. Am I using the hypotenuse? No, I'm not. Therefore, I know I'm going to be using tan. So tan is opposite over adjacent. I put in the values I know. I don't know what my angle is. I know that I've got 12 over 14. Right. So again, this time I'm going to hit the shift tan button on my calculator, which is effectively that one, the tan to the -1. And so shift tan, I'll use my brackets to make sure, 12 divided by 14, and that gives me an angle, oh, let's do that properly, of 40.6. So that's the next step. Basically then with the trigonometry, we're all done there, is then you start applying those to your problem solving activities. Remember, as always, number one tip for problem solving is to make sure that you draw yourself a picture. So that's it. I've got to give a plug to Ranger Surf for all your surf and skatewear needs. Try Ranger Surf. For all your maths needs, try Ryan's a maths teacher at YouTube or whatever it is. Have a good day.